the renderings of the stadium. It's cool. Don't get me wrong. It's got, tons of room for picnicking. They could use that space really creatively on that north side by museum campus.
What if they got the boring company to go bore holes down? You could fly straight to the stadium right underground from wherever in the city that you park.
I'm for it. I was joking with Buzz because Buzz is also a season ticket holder, and our joke was we're gonna buy a pontoon because it looked like there was a lot of parking for boats. So we're like, yeah, we'll load up somewhere and we'll
park
our way down.
So if you go get a yacht club membership, it's probably cheaper than paying for parking right there at the stadium, or like paying your way into there. So go get a yacht club membership, get yourself a nice brunch, and then you'll boat right on over to the stadium. Beautiful. It's right up the lake.
What's next, Q? Are they going to just build the stadium so it floats above Lake Michigan? That's the they'll just put giant rods down there to hold the stadium up. Just I don't know.
I said the boring company thing in jest, but I do wonder, like, they have to figure some type of way out to get people to the stadium. Like, you look at Wrigley. Wrigley's got no parking. We're both Cubs fans. We know this. But there's great public transit in and out of there. It's easy. I mean, it's packed and it's loaded up with drunk people, but it's fun and it's easy. And the opposite of that is like United Center and whatever the White Sox stadium's called now. What is it? It was guaranteed rate. Is it still guaranteed rate? Okay, I thought it changed. And guaranteed rate where they have loads of parking, but like it's not. I'm fine with limited parking as long as it's easily accessible. As someone who doesn't live in Chicago anymore, but like I never had issues with Wrigley because it was easy. It was fun to be around. So if the Bears in the city can build an area that is fun to be around and somehow make it more easily accessible, I can get behind that. Aside from the entire funding question, because to me that's a completely different issue.
But I think too, though, Q, we need to understand, and I wish that I had these numbers in front of me, but I would be curious to see what percentage of season ticket holders are like north or south or west suburbs, because those people who are going to games, I'll tell you what, they're not taking. Most of them are taking a train in. I mean, there's very limited amount of Bears fans who are in the south suburbs like I've been, and getting on the University Park train to get there. I've done it before, but it's not my preferred method to get to Soldier Field. It's just not. I would rather get there earlier, unload the car, do the whole tailgate thing, pay ridiculous amounts of money to park there, here nor there. But I want to know, like, if their idea is that Illinois and Chicago is going to be this hub of people that we try to attract, like, do they find a way to? Do they find themselves negating the north and south suburbs people by making this less accessible to cars? And that's my problem. Like, there's a good amount of season ticket holders, I bet you, who are ones who drive and have no interest in training their way in there. And that's a problem. The parking thing really pisses me off, as you can probably tell. Like, and that's something that I've written every year to the Bears. You got to fix this. You need more room. You need more opportunity. And to see these renderings and go, okay, well, you're just going to add 9,000 more people to the mix when there's not enough for us right now. It doesn't sound right. And two, you have such a large, beautiful piece of land in Arlington Heights that you can make your own. I don't get it. Like, you can own everything. You own your own stadium. You own all the revenue. But now you're going back to the lake and trying to nestle up that way for a plan that, just to me, it's half-assed, in my opinion.
It almost makes me wonder if that I come back to the $2 billion, right? Mm-hmm. I wonder if one of the people putting up a big chunk of that has a lot to gain from them being in the city and wants them in the city. And
It's a
they lose
possibility.
that money if they're in Arlington. And it really forces their hand of, well, we have to be in the city. Because that's the only way it really makes a lot of sense to me as to like this whole timeline and this progression and the fact that they're, tossing aside Arlington Heights because of an $8 million difference in a tax bill. Like that just doesn't add up to me. What adds
No.
up to me is that there's something else behind the scenes, and maybe I'm getting conspiracy theory tinfoil hat over here on it. But I look at everything that's happened with this so far, and I go like, it doesn't add up. There's something else here at play.
Yeah, I mean that's a good point, and it's something that I hadn't thought of. Maybe there is somebody on there who's looking for them to stay there, but also too like, so you just went through all that in Arlington, bought that land, bulldozed it all down for. I mean, now what do they? They're going to sell it back to Joe Schmo, whoever buys it off of them, probably for pennies on the dollar at this point too, right? Because I
I
mean,
don't
it just
know.
is a waste.
That's an interesting aspect because I do think you're going to see a market decline in it because you were the test dummy that showed that you are not going to be able to negotiate this tax bill down, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, so there's some more known information now that was probably more hopeful before that might have raised the price a little bit. Um, but at the same time, there's value added by demolishing all that stuff. It's one of the
Sure,
reasons they
sure,
ran into the tax bill the way they did because they instantly made the land more valuable when they bulldozed everything. So, I mean, they'll be able to sell it. I think it's going to take some time. That's a massive tract of land. Like that stuff takes time to sell. People need, there's years of planning that goes into even bidding on something like that. So I would assume some real estate developer will buy it eventually and paper it up, put in lots, put in utilities, and turn it into some development, multiple developments, sell it off in pieces, however they choose to do it. But I do think that they will be able to sell. It's just a question of how long that takes.
yeah, and two, like I mean, just from the standpoint of the McCaskies, I mean, we've heard a lot about how, and I've talked about it on here. There's a lot of people who say that the grandchildren have no interest in owning the team post, when this regime is done and through. You just wonder too, like, are you leaving money on the table at the end by not having Arlington Heights, and the next person who comes in and has to deal with the city of Chicago? Do,
Well,
do
so
you look at it and go ahead?
that's also where it's interesting. Like I'm not sure how it's going to be structured. A lot of NFL stadiums, I assume Minnesota is this way. I can't say I know it for a fact, but the
Mm-hmm.
city does own the property, and teams either have a land lease or a master lease over the facility where it's their facility to run, to operate, to generate revenue off of all year long, however they choose to.
Right.
But it's not the dirt or the building might not be actually owned by them, but the operations are owned by them through a master lease or a land lease.
But just to clarify that, there's you're still leaving money on the table by being in Chicago, opposed to if you're in Arlington, it's yours. That land is yours. Everything around it that you build is yours.
Oh, now we're getting into like MBA level value
Right.
questions on how much dirt is actually worth. That's a
No,
that's a
well,
whole nother
Well,
conversation.
but then we're talking more about what could you put around it. What could you
Yeah.
work? There is. I mean, this is the fun part about it. There's hotels. There's restaurant life. There's in the city of Illinois or the state of Illinois. There's one out hanging casino license that is out there that I'm sure would love to be close to a major sporting district.
Mhm.
I mean, you're talking about how much money are you leaving on the table by just going, yeah, Chicago's fine because I want to do it with taxpayer dollar on the lake. Like you get what I'm like at the end of this whole thing. Like if it's all about maximizing return for the McCaskey family, to me the route in Chicago seems way less financially beneficial to them than if they were in Arlington Heights.
Well, here's the other thing that I think about there, though. In Chicago on the lakefront, you're talking about $2 billion. In Arlington Heights, you're talking about like $5 billion in capital investment to build out the
Sure.
whole thing. It's much more
Sure.
lucrative, but it's a lot more work and planning and a lot more that can go wrong.
Sure.
I think on the lakefront, it's a more streamlined process that they don't need to be as integrally planned throughout with, which might be part of the appeal to them here.
Yeah, no, it's definitely made easier. Don't get me wrong. I just is it wrong if I fear like in 2003 they really screwed it up? They could have got it right the first time, and I know it's not Ted Phillips anymore. But a lot of that brass is still there.
Teddy would probably tell you how we screw it up. We paid only 1/3 of the cost. The rest of it was free.
Yeah, well, right. But there's also the fan side of it, and the people who go to the state. Like it's Soldier Field's a pit. It's disgusting. Like I just worry that we're going down that same road again. I get some of my best memories of going to games around the lake. I love Soldier Field. I also understand what is the potential of an Arlington Heights and the room and the acreage that is out there. And to me, that I don't know if I'm sitting in there. Yeah, there's more overhead. There's more of this. There's more of that. It's much more on the back of the McCaskies. But I don't know if I own the team. I'm sitting there and saying I want my own. I want my own revenue streams. I want my own. There's more to entice me than there is on the lake. And that's just me. That's just my humble opinion on all of it. I get the financials. I get the idea of having, half of it being paid by somebody other than you. But there comes a time too where it's like, would you rather do it, would you rather have half of it being paid for or do it right somewhere else? And then down the line, when you do so, to me, you're going to make that money back regardless. Because that's built in to the cost of it. Yeah,
I do. I can't help but wonder how much of it is just within the nature of the McCaskies. They're not real estate tycoons. They're not business sharks. Like they're a modest people who have modest goals, and it's like that kind of feels right that they're not going for it all. They're just going for some of it. And I don't know. I just can't help but think that that's where it makes sense that they land.
Yeah, it's just that whole thing today was frustrating to me, and the timing of it too. Like only and I said this to a buddy. I said only the Bears could make me pissed off prior to possibly the best night in their franchise if they play everything right. And Caleb Williams is what we think he's going to be and hope he's going to be. And I don't know. But who knows? I'll end it with this. None of this is set in stone until there's a shovel in the ground. And there's definitely changes to this plan that are going to happen. There's going to be curveballs and trip hazards that are put in. It's interesting. There's a lot that is going to happen by the time that we're talking about stadium construction being done. But like I said, just it really irked me today. And I hated the whole let's pray for a stadium thing. That's ridiculous.
So what was that? I didn't actually watch the presser. I saw some transcripts and I read some articles, but I didn't sit
down and watch it. They had a pastor pretty much go out and pray. Everybody went before and prayed for a stadium. Thank you to everybody. We're praying for the Bears, and it was ridiculous. It absolutely. There's a 50-second video on Twitter that's going around about the prayer that was said. It's ridiculous. To me, that's get up there and do your sales pitch. Like I'm in sales. I'm not walking into a kitchen and going, all right, before we talk about these coffee and juice machines, please, will you pray with me? No, it's like, let's be business about this and have a good conversation. But I know that's Kevin Warren's kind of thing, right? That's his, he's that type of guy that get up at 4 a.m. It just doesn't make sense to me. None of that.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like everything with him is a game,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just trying to figure out who he's trying to game here, and like what it's like a politician. I always get the vibe from with him where it's just like, okay, what was real, what wasn't, and it's really hard to parse the two. And I'm starting to hit a point where I'm just like, is anything real? No, is anything real until it happens? Like I'm just
Yeah.
like it feels like there's so much posturing, so much said, and so many ideas that are floated out there like they're happening that it's kind of hitting a point where I'm just, man, I'm just not going to worry too much about any of this till anything actually happens.
Yeah, and maybe that's the approach I should have took. But I don't know when I feel like, and it's not like you spend a lot of money to go to these games, and when you don't have your opinions, met on what you think would be an improvement for your game day experience, that irks me. And I know for a fact that there's several of us who have voiced our, disgust with the parking situation around there, and maybe they can figure it out. I hope they do. I hope that the best case scenario is they build a wonderful place on the lake, and I go the first night and I park my car and I love every second of it. And I'll come back on this show and say, yeah, I overreacted the first press conference and I was wrong. But there's a lot.
How about this?
There's a lot that's going to happen prior to that.
They buy an old Navy ship and dock it right next to the stadium, and it can store what, like maybe 500 cars on it, and then maybe you do a double decker, so you're talking 1,000 cars at this point, and maybe you buy another 2,000 cars. Is that better or worse than what's currently?
Exit sounds awful. Getting off of that ship sounds.
Oh, they'll have helicopters airlift you. It'll be great.
Hey, is that? But is that a free? Is that a free system?
Sir, they'll bill you. They'll bill you.
Yeah, see, McCaskey. Yep, that sounds about right.